What do CEOs need to know about sales these days? A lot. Outdated sales strategies and tactics plague most companies today. Listen to what innovative CEOs and experts have to say about how to change all that with Sales Talk for CEOs. Welcome to Sales Talk for CEOs. My guest today started his journey in the Navy. From there, he went to recruiting talent, but he realized that his passion was really in training and development. And all those years in recruiting gave him his background in sales. So he is now a sales coach extraordinaire for the enterprise sales and senior sellers, as well as their leaders and CEOs. He is an author, speaker, and coach. I'm excited to have John Klymshyn with me today. Welcome, John.
Thank you, Alice. Very excited to be here.
Well, I know you've got a few great stories to tell, and we have a lot to talk about because you and I both believe that vision is critical to sales. That CEO vision, that sales leader vision. And even in your book, you say vision precedes everything. So let's start there.
Well, and that's where it all starts, right? What is going on in the mind and in the heart of the CEO? Why should people show up every day? Whether we're going into offices or only logging on, people go to work for a company for a variety of reasons. There's a huge distinction and difference between motivation and inspiration. The CEO that thinks that their job is to motivate their folks is not really getting it, because everybody shows up with their own motivation. Everyone chooses to come to work each individual day because of what is going on in their life and what they hope to achieve. The CEO's role, the sales leader's role, is to find out what that individual motivation is over time and to be able to actively and creatively inspire their people so that they will do the work, go through the brick walls, make that extra call, whatever it is, ask that more creatively formulated question so that they can move the conversation forward. And as you said, thank you for mentioning it, in my book on sales management, which is absolutely a CEO function at some level, some more than others, the first three words in the book are vision precedes everything. There's an very old book that says, without vision, the people perish. The people that show up to work for any individual company any day, they are the precious inventory of the leaders in that organization. Regardless of what we're selling, whether it's an experience, a platform, an idea, a product, a service, it doesn't matter. Our employees are our precious inventory. And I kind of adopted that, understood that through my recruiting career. And over the years, I've helped a lot of sales organizations in how they think about recruiting and retaining. And all of that starts with, why should I come to work here? If I am a productive salesperson at any level, give me a reason. You don't have to oversell me, but give me a reason. And if I can connect with your vision, then all of a sudden I feel as though we're collaborating. We're not peers. You're the CEO. I handle sales for my region, my territory, whatever it is. But give me a compelling reason. And when the inspiring leader understands what's motivating the individual folks, and it changes somewhere between 65 and 90 days with almost everyone, then that they have the opportunity to inspire people. I was leading an executive retreat a couple of years ago, and the chief operations officer said, I just wish I could get my people to, and I interrupted and I said, that's not your role. Your role is to draw things out of your people that they did not even know were there. Because when you do that, what you do is you start to open up this person's mind to what's possible. And what I said in that moment was, because you said, I got to motivate these people. No, you don't. You have to find out what motivates them and inspire them. And I came up with a little aphorism, a Klymshynism, which is motivation fades, inspiration feeds. And as a leader, we've got to feed our people, and we've got to feed them hope, not, Pollyanna, and not all these, what dreams may come type of images, we've got to be able to feed them hope. And that means that we understand who they are, where they are, and what it is that they want.
Well, let's unpack this because none of these things you're explaining here can happen without a vision. None of them, right?
Agreed.
We can't inspire people if we don't have a vision. We can't find out what motivates them and help match that, right? By and inspire them without a vision. These people all got on your bus, right? And they are
Yes.
in a seat and they want to know, where are we going, right?
Mm.
And your customers want to know, where are you going? Because I want to know if I want to take this ride with you also, right? So you've got all these constituents who are looking at you as the CEO, and then that trickles down right through our sales leaders and through every other leader in our company. Where are we going and how are you expressing this? And I think one of the biggest problems that I see, John, is that CEOs either don't have a clear vision or they don't articulate their vision very well. So let's talk about that for a few minutes. So I'm sure you see it because you and I work with a very similar audience, right?
Mhm.
We work with companies that are about the same size, doing the same kinds of things. They all have a very complex enterprise sale and they have very senior people in these sales processes. And the CEO has a role in sales. And you've heard me say this probably a million times, and so has my audience. The CEO will always have a role in sales, but that role changes as the company matures, right? But we don't know as a CEO, what is my role right now in sales if I don't even have that vision down? So
Mm.
how do you recommend or talk to CEOs about this vision and how they make it really solid and then help them communicate it? Because I know communication is a big thing for you.
Of course it is, and thank you for that. It to me it all boils down to the language. How clear is the language? You said why are we going in this direction? One of the things that I ask leaders to begin as many sentences with in a day as possible is here's where we're headed. Because when you say here's where we're headed, I'm looking forward and I want to be elbow to elbow with you. Here's where we're headed. What it does is it speaks to the subconscious mind, it speaks to the heart, and it speaks to vision, which I want to get a little tighter on in a minute. The When the vision can be expressed in one sentence, people either buy into it or they don't. And when they do, they want to unpack it. They want to expand on it. And this is a huge word for me. They want to contribute to that. Salespeople, here's the thing. Enterprise salespeople, they do not sit on Friday afternoon wondering whether or not they're going to be able to make their mortgage. It's just the truth. A productive enterprise salesperson is making a good living, right? Unless they can't manage their money, but that's another issue. It is, after a while, it's not really about the money. It's about either the competition or their personal growth. And when I can continue to compete, that means I contribute. When I can grow, that gives me a reason to stay here and to participate in the vision. And
Right.
the tighter the language is, the better off the entire organization is. Because it reminds me of this story that I call planting the flag. The Some years ago, I read a book by a guy named Charles Garfield, and he had unusual access to a variety of companies that were at that time. And this was in the 1960s, so oh my God, it sounds like ancient history. In the 1960s, they were working on some really interesting, unique, very big goals. One of the companies that he had access to was Grumman on Long Island. They were involved in the space program. And it was before we had put Neil Armstrong on the moon. And he decided he would ask the exact same question of everyone he met, no matter where he was in the building. He went in with the executives, and after a bunch of people talked, he said, "So, what exactly are we doing here?" And two or three people said the exact same thing at the exact same time. Not like robots, but they were in it. They believed it. He left there and he went and he spoke to some engineers. And just standing there while he was being shown diagrams, he says, "What exactly do you do here?" And they said the exact same thing. And this is the kicker. He walked down the hallway, and there was a janitor mopping the floor. And he asked the janitor, "What are you doing here?" And he said, "I'm putting a man on the moon." That kind of articulation of and clarity of vision is so inspiring that it elevates the way people view the work that they do every day. For a
Right.
janitor to be convinced that his participation was putting those men on the moon, that is clarity of vision. So
Okay, so how do we get a clear vision like that? So I'm a CEO, maybe I'm 10 years in, maybe I'm 20 years in, maybe I had a vision when I first started. I have the opposite experience, right, from that plant the flag story, which I think is phenomenal. That's what we all want. But what I have the experience of is asking the CEO to go around and ask everyone, what's the vision of our company? Everybody's got a different story. Just like when you ask them, what is the value proposition? Everybody answers something differently. So, how do we get a CEO to determine first, what is my vision now today? Maybe different than it was in the past. Tighten that up to the point where they can get it into one or maybe two sentences that everybody can speak.
It's a great question, and I take a variety of groups through this. What I do is I say, okay, I want you to, in your mind, I want you to think of three people who you believe, who you have seen in your life, whether you know them or not, whether you've met them or not, whether they are alive or dead. Three people that when you think, you think that person has a great vision or had a great vision. And I want you to write their names down. Give them about a minute, minute and a half to do it. What's interesting, I know you've seen stuff like this. They have the first name in a millisecond. The second name, okay, I'll
Harder.
write that one down. And the third one is really difficult to come up with. They finally do, they come up with it. Say, okay, all right, so these three people, don't tell me who they are. These three people in your mind have or had a great vision. They were the people's names who came into your mind. Now I want you to spend a minute and I want you to write down words that describe either that person or their vision. Individual words, not long sentences, not quotes, not hyphenates. And then after they've written a dozen or so down, I ask them to tell me the first three, because those three words are what that person aspires to. And when you aspire to something, no matter what it is, now you have the basic building blocks for your vision statement. And when you can articulate that and say, listen, here's what we're doing here, here's where we're headed. This organization will blank, or this organization is in the business of blank. And they've got to go out, they have got to make disciples of many nations. And
Right.
they've got to sell it. The leadership is sales. I really don't see a separation, because in order to draw things out of people that they did not know were there, you've got to sell that person on. You are invested in them and you believe in their future in the
Right. And you
organization.
sell them by inspiring them, not by telling them, right? Or badgering or bullying or anything else. It's like, I have this vision and I'm going to inspire you to, in the words of Simon Sinek, believe what I believe. I am going to inspire you to believe what I believe. And we're going to inspire our customers to believe it too, right? Because
Mm.
in a great vision, I believe, and I follow David Burkus. I don't know if you know him, but he spoke at one of the TED Talks that I help organize here in Reno, and I've been following him ever since. He's actually spoken twice. And he says that part of the vision, right, and having really engaged employees is when your employees understand how this vision gives the customer the result that they want, right?
Mm.
How, in the end, does this help our customer? How are the people who I served benefiting from this, right? People want to feel like they're making an impact, like they're making a difference. Now, maybe not everybody, but most humans do, right? And that inspires them to some degree that they can make a difference, that they can help someone else. So I think they got to get these visions really clear around, you know, where we're going, who we're going to be, who we're going to serve, how we're going to serve them, but in a sentence or two, like, you know, I'm putting a man on the moon. Yes, you are.
Exactly
Right?
right. And he believed it, and guess what? He did in some way, shape, or form, right? He probably got a moon rock out of it or something like that. But he went home every night telling his family that. And that reminds me of something out of the sales management book that is absolutely relevant to CEOs. Is that what I did in assembling that book? My name's on the cover. the ideas and the concepts are what I gathered from talking to 24 different leaders in a variety of different industries. And one of them is a gentleman named Dennis Napoliello. He was a senior executive at AT&T Wireless when I interviewed him for the book. And he said, from the moment you are a named leader at any level, from that moment and for the rest of your life, you will be the topic of somebody's dinner conversation.
So true. So true.
Yeah. Everybody talks about their boss at dinner.
Yeah.
Everybody does. Maybe not every night, but every night, if you've got 8, 12, 15, 175 people, someone's talking about you over dinner. And that doesn't mean that we want to insert ourselves in that. What that means is it requires self-awareness, and it absolutely requires something I'm very passionate about as an author, as a speaker, just in life, precision of language. You and I talked before we started recording, or the previous time that we met, I don't remember. But what really my inspiration and what fuels me is the intersection between language and music. Because every language on earth, at its core, is music. Every language resonates. Every language enters the ear and goes right to the heart before the brain has a chance to filter it or judge it, right? And every language has tone, tempo, dynamics. So if you and I can get CEOs thinking in an arena where their language needs to resonate, now we're moving in a really exciting direction. And the way that we achieve precision of language is that we write out 4 or 5 sentences and then discard 2/3 of what we've written out.
Yes.
Right?
Yes.
What's the old rule about email? Whatever you plan on sending, take 2/3 of it out and then hit send.
Absolutely. All right. So CEOs really need to be aware of their vision. And if you need to take some time on that, you should do it. Maybe work with your senior team or your whole team, but get that vision down and then start working on the words that will describe that vision so that it's this language that you're talking about, John, that will resonate and inspire, right? So everybody's super clear and it trickles down through the whole organization. Everybody can tell you what the vision is and they understand how that impacts themselves, how it impacts others around them, and how it impacts the customer, right?
Mm-hmm.
And then we're really starting to move. Okay, so let's say we've got this down now and everybody understands the vision and can speak it clearly because it's easy, right? And everybody can use that for that forward momentum. So now we have an organization that's humming along like you described in the plant the flag, right? We're going to send a man to the moon. Great. Now what? What comes next?
I think that comes from the mouths of your folks, because once they have participated in fueling that vision and we're on our way there, that's the time to ask them, what's next? What else are we capable of? Another one of my aphorisms is, let's lead with curiosity and back it up with technique. Let's lead our organization with that vision, and hopefully it's something that is, Mark Victor Hansen, the great speaker and writer who inspired me to become a professional speaker, he said, our reach must exceed our grasp. And I love the clarity and the precision of that language, because he didn't explain it for 17 paragraphs. He just left it there. And I figured it out. So when your folks are figuring it out, and as you're having your one-on-ones, and as you're doing your retreats, and as you're having your all hands meetings, I think it's reasonable and fair to say, what do you think this organization is capable of next? Because every leadership conversation is about the future.
Right. And that's where we want people headed, right? We don't want them looking behind us constantly. And yes, be here now so that you can think about the future and guide, right? Everyone, the people who you lead to the future and your customers to the future, right? We can't leave them where they are stagnating. We've got to move them to the future. And I think Many deals these days are not closing because of that. People keep talking, all over LinkedIn about stalled deals and no decision. Those things happen when you can't see the future clearly, right?
Mm.
And you don't see the value. So you just make no decision.
That and because I think that our friends, hopefully that I'm not branding someone out of school here. There is a organization out of Ireland that has a CRM called One Page CRM. They and if you don't want to promote them on the show, I understand. They put out a poll last week. Can edit this out. They put out a poll and they asked which is more difficult, qualifying or closing. And I
Oh, I
responded,
saw that. And no, we're not going to edit this out. It's fine to
okay.
mention another
I
company on the
responded
show.
with 17 lines about the fact that if you are not engaging the people in the decision committee that have the final authority to sign off on what you offer, then you have not qualified properly. And you have been closing people that have nothing better to do than spend time with you. This is time is short, right? We're being measured by the quarter and by the year. Some organizations by the month. In general, enterprise sales is measured by the quarter and the year. And I am not interested in doing anything quickly. However, I am interested in being efficient. And part of an enterprise salesperson's job is to truly qualify who they're selling to, who they're presenting to, and who they're presenting pricing to. And this is endemic. And I've seen this in several organizations, one of which I'm working with now. And it's challenging for the salesperson because they're having such great conversations. Those conversations are not leading you where you want to be,
Well, they're
which is
either with the wrong people or about the wrong topics, right? And I always say closing should not be an event. Closing starts at the beginning, right? You are working on that relationship and that value and helping them see the vision and the future from the first conversation with the right people so
Yep.
that you're moving together, not salesperson moving way ahead. You're moving together through that buying journey, making decisions together, collaborating, so that closing is not an event. It's just the natural culmination of the work that you've done together. And far too many companies and leaders focus so much on closing. Closing isn't the problem, right? Closing is not the problem. So
Well, and we
if
live in a world, I'm sorry, we live in a world now where there are very few decision makers, individual, singular, only one human. Everything is by collaboration and by committee. And the thing that's challenging is that these committees are, number one, they're ad hoc, they're informal, they can change. We can start the conversation with these three people, and then over the course of a month or two, they've added or subtracted someone. And it's almost as, well, who are we going to get now? Well, that's part of being prepared to sell effectively. That is part of what I refer to as the art and the skill of moving conversations forward. Moving conversations forward is an exciting phrase for a couple of reasons. Number one, it has three words in it, and that's my favorite thing, if we can boil things down to three, right? Because if you think about it, you and your husband go out to a nice restaurant. Once they start explaining the fourth special at dinner, you've forgotten what the first one was. So moving conversations forward is not pushing them forward. It's not dragging them forward. It is, as you said, it's a collaboration between you and your prospect or prospects, right? And moving conversations forward in the English nerd universe that I live in, because I actually study how language works and why the sentences are structured the way they are and what a subject and a nominative clause is and all that stuff is just what I'm interested in. Moving conversations forward begins with a verb. It begins with action. And that means that it's called a present tense perfect. So when we are in our second and third meeting with these folks, moving the deal forward, not forcing it, moving it forward because it's their idea, not ours, we ask questions like, based on where we've been, what's most important for us to look at today? And once we get that, then we ask them what sound like simple questions like, what would you like to do next? That sounds like someone that does not sound like a salesy person. That
Right.
sounds like someone that is involved in a conversation. And another one of my Klymshynisms is meetings are endured, conversations are enjoyed.
Right. And that's what it should be, right? We're trying to engage people. They need to be part of it. They don't need to be talked to, talked at, pushed through, right? We're engaging with them. We're in collaboration with them. So as a CEO, again, once I've got this clear vision, I've communicated it really clearly. How does that drive sales, right? How does that drive these sales leaders to manage their teams in a different way?
Well, I think it boils down to understanding what the five key motivations are for professional sellers, and they shift and they change over time. They rarely go outside of this list of five things. First is public recognition. There are some people who love being in front of audiences. Private recognition. There are some people that would just rather you not mention it in front of the crowd, but when you invite them into a conference room or you're sitting down with coffee one on one, or you call them on the telephone to say, hey, listen, I see what's going on. I see what you accomplished this past quarter. We're so excited to have you here. That person is going to float on about 8 inches of air for the rest of the day, maybe into the week. And oh, by the way, you will be the topic of their dinner conversation in a positive way. So first is public recognition, because salespeople just dig being in front of people. Second is private, which, I enjoy that too. Third is growth. What am I learning here that I would not learn elsewhere? Why is this organization investing in me, and in at what level? Because again, back to the sales management book, which, you guys are going to be kind enough to let people know about, or anybody could visit the my Amazon author page. In that book, we say, listen, salespeople want two things from their immediate and up the chain leaders. They want attention paid and an investment made. And I'm not talking about money. Money is important. So five things that motivate enterprise salespeople: public recognition, or and private recognition, or and growth. I'm better. I'm better now than I was a year ago. The year ago version of me would be very excited about who I am today and how I'm operating. And then this one, you see it across the board. I know you see it every day. Competition. I have two people working for one of my clients that keep saying to me, I have got to get to the top of the leaderboard. Cool. Now I know what that person wants, right? And after competition, and after growth, and after private recognition, and after public recognition is money. So the organization that feels that creating more incentives for their salespeople is going to guarantee them more sales, they're not in touch
Yeah.
with who
And I
people
want
are.
to stop right there and say this for all of you CEOs listening and all of you sales leaders listening. Salespeople are not coin operated. And I don't want to hear that anymore. Oh, they're coin operated. Stop saying that. It's not true. Yes, money is important. And there are those few salespeople who really just like the money really, floats their boat, but it is not true for the vast majority, and especially in the younger generations. They want these other things that John is talking about. They want the recognition, public or private. They want the growth. They demand the growth. They're going to go somewhere else if you don't show them how they're going to grow, right?
Hmm.
So
Yes.
they want these other things badly. And if they don't see that you're giving those to them, paying them more isn't going to make one bit of difference. The pay will make a difference if all the other things are also in place, but they'll work harder because, right, of these
Yeah.
other things. And many of the salespeople are intrinsically motivated and they want to do better. That competition drives them. That's why the competition drives them, right? And they want to do better for their customer, and they want their customer to succeed and grow, and they love that. So we really have to consider those things so that we don't say things like salespeople are coin operated, and then you're losing good people, or you're really not advancing them in any other way because the money doesn't advance them.
Well, I think you're lowering the level of sophistication of the perception of how sophisticated a professional seller is. Listen, Selling at almost any level, but certainly at the enterprise level, is one of the most challenging mental exercises on earth. That's why I stay in it because I love the mental challenge. I love the intellectual challenge. I love the disciplinary emotional challenge because someone another thing I don't like is the phrase closed lost. We lost a deal. So they had a contract, you had a contract, you were getting paid, and they pulled it? No, it
No.
just didn't come through. Well, here's the thing. What do I have in my hand? Nothing. If you risk that nothing and you lose that nothing, what have you lost? Nothing. The enterprise salespeople report to a lot of people, Alice, today who fall in love with the idea of having someone as a customer, having a particular brand or logo as a customer. Oh, that'll be such a great account. Really? Have you met any of the people?
Sometimes that not all business is good business, right? We get these crazy ideas
Amen.
sometimes, but not all
Amen.
business is good business. So,
No.
all right. So, CEOs, look at your sales leaders, figure out what they're doing, right? How close are they to the customer? How close are they to their team? Do they understand what motivates their team? And are they able to use that to inspire them, right? Forward and to inspire them to continue really helping the customer, right? So it goes from the CEO having that vision to the sales leaders knowing and understanding that vision. Every leader across the company should, but we're talking sales here, so we'll stick with that.
Yes.
And then the sellers need to understand that vision and how it relates to them and their customers so that they can keep driving things forward, right? And I think that it just keeps coming back to vision. When the sellers get kind of lost and they're off track and they're not hitting goals, bring it back to the vision, right? Have that conversation again and let that be the driver for here's where we're going, here's where we're headed, here's our future.
Mhm. And if you're in enterprise sales, you have both an appreciation for and a deep interest in what I refer to as the larger work, right? I write books. Yes, I've written a whole bunch of articles, but you know what? I write books. I that is a large work. It is a significant undertaking. And when people ask me what's the hardest thing about writing a book, I answer there's not one, there are three. There are three things that make writing a book hard. Number one, starting it. A lot of people talk about I'm going to write a book. Okay, cool. Haven't seen anything. Second, finishing it. Because if you're going to keep working on it for 11 years, I'm not sure that's the project for you, right? So starting it, I'm going to do the outline. I'm going to write down 17 ideas. Maybe I'll boil that down to 12, whatever it is. Starting it, finishing it, and here's the real challenge and what has me continue to do it is maintaining a consistent voice throughout. And that is a beautiful metaphor for the enterprise sale. That is a fantastic metaphor for 12 months of inspiring enterprise salespeople to keep their vision in front of them and to keep reaching beyond their grasp and to draw things out of themselves that they did not know were there. And I had a conversation yesterday with a team out of Australia, and we were talking about comfort zone. I'm not really sure where mine is. I'll tell you what, I don't live in it a lot. I'm looking to continue to challenge myself. The book I'm working on right now, it will absolutely be the longest and deepest work I've done. And it's exciting that there's still that kind of work ahead of me. So it is not only for the enterprise salesperson, it's not only about the dollar transaction. It's about, as you said, the ultimate impact. How is that going to serve the customer or the customer's customer? I always believe that we are not selling a box. We're selling what the box does for the customer, whether it's our direct customer or their end user, whatever it might be.
Yeah, absolutely. So I do think, bringing it back to vision, right? We want to make sure we don't lose sight of that. And I think we go sometimes quarters or even years without bringing it back around to that vision, which drives all of these things that you're talking about. You write a book because you have a vision, right? And then you drive your sales team because you have a vision for your company to be something to somebody, right? Something important to somebody. And I think that these vision conversations just need to keep looping in and looping in and looping in, and not forget it. And when the vision changes, because it might, then we have to be clear. Hey, the vision has changed. Here's why. Here's what's happening now. Here's where we're headed. Here's why, right?
Right.
And then that language has to be formulated again and trickled down through the organization again. And I think when I see, CEOs coming to me saying, "Oh, we've had a couple of flat quarters, this has happened, that has happened. We want to get to here, but we're just really stuck. We're not getting there." Then you want to re-examine what's the vision, right?
Hmm.
When you're
And
stuck, what's the
and
vision?
how bought in are your people, and how excited are you about that vision? Because the fact that you've been selling it for a year does not guarantee that is what gets you out of bed, right? The I'm a firm believer, Alice, that our attitude toward any given day is determined. Our attitude toward the day is determined in the first 90 seconds after our feet hit the floor in the morning. Doesn't mean that we can determine whether or not it's a quote good day or a bad day. It's our attitude toward that day. So if a CEO or a sales leader gets up 3 days in a row thinking, I'm not excited about trying to find ways to inspire my people, then you know what? It's time for a what I refer to as a spiritual chiropractic adjustment. Let's go ahead and let's crack some bones here and say, what can we really do that we haven't done yet? Because that's what people are interested in new experiences, interested in new challenges, interested in learning something new. The older I get, the more interested I am in how do I keep the brain active? How do I keep feeding the mind? The music I listen to, the music I perform, the music I record, the books that I read, the books that I am involved in. I was just invited this morning to write a foreword for someone else. I mean, it's where's that next thing that I can really sink both hands into
Well, and
with
CEOs need to be those lifelong learners like that, right? And they need
oh yeah.
to show their team that they're like that. And then that inspires their team, right, to be these lifelong learners, always exploring, always changing, because change is hard, right? And that's what we're talking about in sales anyway. We're always talking about asking someone to change.
Yes.
And without a vision, it's pretty hard to make a change because you can't really see why you're going to do it, right?
Mhm. Asking people to change because it's our idea. That's a challenge. That is hard work. And my hat, I tip my hat if I had one. I tip my hat to the professional seller. And I make that conscious distinction. There are a whole bunch of people in sales, and there is a much smaller universe of professional sellers.
Right.
And you know it. You know the true pro. We went to a concert not too long ago, and the opening act was a famous name, and everybody knew their songs. And then the headliner came out, and the entire environment was different. Within 90 seconds of taking the stage, it was, wow, that's why that person is the headliner. They carry themselves, they believe in themselves, they are doing something that is deeply important to them.
Yeah,
And
and CEOs, you don't attract those kind of sellers without a vision. You just don't.
absolutely not. Why should I come here? Give me a reason. We're doing something different. We're changing the industry. We're changing how this is done. We're improving. We're serving a market that is underserved. I have a mathematical formula for how I would like more CEOs to think. And that mathematical formula is service plus discipline equals creativity. When you have your folks understanding that businesses exist, the reason businesses exist is to generate profit, not to make money, because the kid on the corner is making money by selling lemonade. Oh, by the way, mom bought all the ingredients, right? So businesses exist to generate profit. And when they can exist and live and thrive because they are of service and their folks are disciplined, then a whole bunch of creativity shows up.
Yeah, yeah, it's a beautiful thing to have all that
It
creativity
is.
just
How much?
exuding, right? Exuding out of everybody, right? Oh my gosh, I love this so much. I could talk to you all day.
Well, that's
However, we're just like
big
getting to the
time.
end of our time. So I have, as you know, 3 questions for you that will help all of our listeners to dive into some new places maybe they haven't been before. First one is, what is a book that you think every CEO should read?
It's called The Ultimate Sales Manager's Guide. If you don't want to read it, then you can get it on Audible or iTunes, and I narrate it. And the reason I'm excited about the audiobook is that it gave me the opportunity to engage in Dennis Miller style rants, where I would be talking about something and say, okay, here's what's not in the book. And I would go off. And there's a bonus in the audio version. It is a 45-minute interview with someone who, up until 2 years ago, was the chief revenue officer for Indeed.com. I went on a 10-year journey with them from $16 million a year to $3 billion a year in revenue. We took this sales management philosophy around the globe for them. And that was a very exciting journey. So,
Yeah, and that book I think is super important today with this trend that I'm seeing with so many small and mid-size leaders that are about 10 years in taking back sales. Their sales, not hiring another sales leader. They're getting rid of their sales leader and they're taking charge of sales. They have settled into their company. They have their CEO role down and they're like, I need to lead sales now because sales is changing so much. And I need to be the one leading it for a period of time and get my arms around it. So for any CEO who's leading sales right now, that book will be very helpful. All right, next question. What is a podcast that you love because it helps you think differently?
Well, I I tend not to listen to business podcasts. I tend not to read business books because I want to engage a different sphere in my mind. And there is a podcast called Cyber Rants, and it is run by a former special forces person who is the CEO of a company where what they do is they help their clients with security and disaster recovery and not being victims of ransomware and stuff like that. It's called Cyber Rants. It's hosted by someone named Zach Fuller, and the conversations that they get into and the rants that he goes on, there's just like you stop listening to that and you're like, okay, how can I apply that to what I do?
Love that. I love that. That's the same reason that I listen to science podcasts. Because I get ideas for sales from that, right? And
Absolutely.
it's amazing. So it's really good to listen to something that isn't in your business or industry, right? Outside of that, something that helps you be more creative. So I love that. All right, last question. What does every CEO need to know to win in this market?
Retention is critical, and recruiting never stops. I don't have the head count. I don't care. You need to know who the talented, smart, hardworking people that could potentially resonate with your vision. You need to know who they are out in the marketplace. I encourage all leaders. You should be interviewing salespeople always, because if you can build your bench and somehow, God forbid, one of your solid performers gets recruited away or their partner gets recruited away and you have to lose that person for whatever reason, retention is critical. Recruiting should never stop. I don't have a role today, but I tell you what, when I do, I want you to be the first person I call.
Yeah, yeah, I like that. I think it's really important. And I think, again, it just ties back to vision because if you know where you're going, then you know how to retain your people, you know how to retain your customers, and you know how to build the bench strength by attracting people to that vision.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Well, thank you so much, John. It has been a pleasure to chat with you here today.
Thanks, Alex.
All right. Have a great one. If you enjoyed the show, please like and subscribe, and we'll see you next week.